I guess going back to your question before around screening.
Yeah.
So we are regulated from the TGA in Australia, who set the rules of who can access these medicines. It's very clear. You must be over 18. So you've got to be considered a legal adult in Australia to access these medicines. You need to meet a criteria of treatment resistant depression or treatment resistant PTSD. What they consider treatment resistant in Australia is you've tried at least 2 courses of antidepressant or anti-anxiety medications, and or with a round of therapy. So generally, cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT as people are used to its acronym name, or some other form of talk therapy. If people have not been able to improve their symptoms based on those kinds of criteria, and as long as there is no immediate or secondary family history of psychotic related disorders, you
Right.
meet the eligibility criteria from the TGA. But under the TGA, each psychiatrist and clinical psychedelic team will have their own criteria for people to meet. And this is based on the comfortability of the team. This is
Hmm.
based on, you know, our insurances. This is based on what's accessible to us. We have to remember in mental health that comorbidities exist. It's very uncommon that you see someone with just straight depression and nothing else. You often see people with depression, anxiety, and maybe some substance addiction or misuse.
Right. What do you think about? Yeah, because that's all super fascinating for how they say that you have to try antidepressants first before you go
Yes.
into. So, and I think what we've learned, and definitely correct me where I'm wrong, in the last 30 40 years of these drugs, like some of them just aren't as effective as, let's say, even exercise, for example. Or if you're between 18 and 25, those are very those are years laced with anxiety because just growing in the world, and there's so many things that happen during that time. And
Yeah.
what do you think about having to put someone through a course of antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication that has so many lists of side effects before going and trying something like MDMA or psilocybin, which
Mhm.
are relatively safe, at least from like a physiological point of view? I think there are some
Mhm.
risks with psilocybin with maybe a very bad trip or a mental break or stuff like that, but those are super rare as far as I know. Whereas antidepressants, we know that there are a whole bunch of side effects. So I'd love to hear what you think about that protocol from the government.
Yeah, I understand the protocol from the government because basically the medications from an SSRI or an SNRI perspective of the antidepressant anti-anxiety is considered first line treatment.
Mm.
Should they suggest therapy as the first line treatment to just see and then maybe medication second? Maybe.
Yeah.
The research supports that as being a quite a strong argument. But in Australia, basically the antidepressant medication, anti-anxiety medication is considered our first line treatment. So I understand why that is a requirement. I don't disagree with it. If we're trying to differentiate treatment resistant versus a depressive episode, we have to find a distinction.
Okay.
And as myself as a clinician in this space, compared to my colleague who is also a clinician, compared to my next colleague, we may all have
Mm.
a very different personal interpretation of what treatment resistant is considered as.
Okay.
So if we have that standard, I suppose it kind of helps the industry overall
Hmm.
be able to have something to work with as a standardized approach.
Okay. So you think maybe in the future we might have a better idea of, okay, let's go right to psilocybin. So this is just like stage one of everybody accepting these medicines.